Hey y'all, it's Chris. Now today on the podcast, my guest is Chris Whitney. Now Chris is a friend of mine. He is the executive director of OneGenAway, an organization headquartered here in Franklin, Tennessee that rescues high quality surplus food from grocery stores, restaurants, farms, caterers, and they redistribute that food to individuals and families who are experiencing food insecurity. Now, Chris founded OneGenAway with his lovely wife, Elaine, and over the last few years, we've become dear friends, and I've been wanting to have Chris on for a while now. We finally made it happen, and I'm really tickled about that. Now, in this episode, Chris and I talk about how God led him and Elaine to move to Nashville, how they started OneGenAway, the stigma of failing, how he grew OneGenAway from $1 million to more than $27 million in 10 years, his distaste for the word nonprofit. That's fun, and a whole lot more. So here it is, my conversation with Chris Whitney of OneGenAway. Yeah, you're the first one in here.
Wow. This is cool. I like it.
It's a quiet little spot.
I like it a lot.
It has some sound dampening properties, you know.
Oh, yeah. There we go.
Just cool. A little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just enough to...
Yeah. the Southern Redneck book here.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, man. This is the Southern way, man. This is how we do it.
Yeah, I like this little spot. You're the first guest in here.
Man, that's humbling and impressive.
No,
hey, so when you get your book done, can I get hired on, like carry your luggage and do that kind of stuff?
No, I can't afford you.
Oh man, I'm cheap, dude.
There's no chance I can afford you. You're and your efforts would be better served doing other things anyway.
Okay, well, I guess maybe we'll do joint speaking somewhere.
Hey, I'd love to do that.
That'd be fun to do.
I would love to do that.
Wouldn't we be people would leave going, these two guys,
Chris and Chris?
Yeah, where'd they come from?
I don't know. I think we could be pretty good at it.
Oh, we'd be really good at it. We'd have a lot of fun. I know that, man.
Nobody would come though.
I don't know. You never know. They probably would I just want to get to the Q&A. If they just wouldn't even talk and just let us ask questions, they'd probably go, wow.
Let us ask questions of them?
Them, or other way around. They just ask us questions like, how did you two even end up talking to each other?
Before you rang my doorbell, I was finishing up my lunch, and here's what I do every day when I'm here in the office. When I make my lunch, I sit down at my desk, I watch about 15 minutes of something on Netflix, Amazon Prime, something like that. And right now I'm watching Oppenheimer. Have you seen this film?
Just saw it. Unbelievable.
I've stayed away from it, you know. I don't know. I don't know why I had this opinion. I mean, I think, there's some sex scenes in it, which is like, I don't know. I mean, they're sex scenes.
Yeah, yeah.
And somebody had told me like, oh man, they're really bad. So I just had stayed away from this movie, but I got really curious about it with all the hype around the awards and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I'm blown away by this film. Like, that's not what I want to talk about. I literally turned it off right when you rang the doorbell.
Yeah, he is like Daniel Day-Lewis almost.
Yeah.
I mean, totally into the character. Yeah. And man, I really thought I don't know, I just thought it was fantastic, man. Every bit of it. The acting was, gosh, unbelievable.
And what I don't know that I've ever really thought about how heavy a moment that was.
Dude, you understand the weight of the moment.
Yeah.
And I think especially when you talk about entrepreneurs and you talk about doing business, I think that it's hard for someone to comprehend the gravity of the risk of I mean, you know what I mean? And the impact of who you're dealing with and it's like, be careful what you dream for because you just might get it. Because when you get it, you realize, dude, this is a burden, you know?
Oh,
and we're both believers, but casting all your cares upon the Lord, I understand all that. But now we're stewarding God's baby in a sense, you know? Dude, it's like, I don't want to screw this up.
No, I totally get it. I just, that film, you know, we live now it's an atomic age. Like, I don't know how many countries around the world have that weapon now, but good gracious, it's terrifying to think about now.
Well, and just in that one part, are you at the end of the movie yet?
No, well, I'm where they've just detonated the test bomb.
Yeah, the line that comes after that is like incredible, you know, because it says that.
Yeah, what is it? What does he say? I can't remember. Gosh, I literally just watched.
I know it's hard to remember everything. I need to watch
a line
it again.
from. I feel like it's a line from Greek mythology or something like that.
Yeah,
you know.
It was, yeah. It's about unleashing
Destroyer of worlds or something
yeah.
like. Golly,
man, and it was so prophetic, and the weight of it, I think, was if I caught anything, was the gravity of the decision.
Yeah,
they understood the magnitude to the best of their ability at the moment.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a good segue you tried to make there into entrepreneurship a minute ago.
I know it was good. I knew you. Well, I'm trying to stay in character.
It's
true.
Character.
It's true, though. You know, it's true.
I totally agree.
It is.
You never know until you get knee deep into it,
man. And obviously that's a especially when they show the video of Nagasaki and I mean, kind of the people. Oh yeah, man.
I haven't seen it.
And they start talking about how many people die, and you're like, wow,
it's a lot. It's heavy.
It's really heavy. Really, really heavy.
So when you and Elaine, I'm curious about this. When you meet, Elaine's your wife, when you and Elaine are at a dinner party or some function or something and you meet somebody new, you know, I feel like as men, a lot of times that conversation almost instantly goes to like, well, what do you do? We talk about that. Well, what do you do?
Exactly.
And I always hate it. I hate that we automatically go there. So I try not to. But when it does come up, when somebody says, hey, Chris, tell me about what you do. How do you explain what you do?
I tell them we run a food ministry, which they kind of look at you, you know. And I said, so I normally start with, we do these mobile food pantries on Saturday mornings where we can feed like 300 people a grocery cart full of food. And, you know, about 100 volunteers. And it's like the most amazing experience. We don't ask any questions. I said, well, we ask one question. Is there anything we can pray with you about today? Because we know there's a greater need than food. And I start with that. And if there's any inkling of interest, then I'll keep, you know, then I'll explain kind of the other two things we do besides that. But it is.
So if there is if there is more of like interest in that, how do you go on to tell people like what OneGen is? And
yeah, so then I said, so what the other thing we do is we rescue food, which I said, isn't that funny? Rescue food, like it's in jail or something. Yeah. I said, well, instead of them throwing it away, we go to stores and pick it up. And I said, when we started out of the back of a Hyundai Santa Fe, so we didn't have a warehouse. So I said, that food we rescue every day is on someone's table that evening, which is this like mind-blowing thing that happens, you know. So, which we didn't know at the time when we created it, that was a mind-blowing thing and a cutting-edge thing. But that became a reality. And then just you know, a little while, a year and a half ago or whatever, Doorstep Pantry came about via DoorDash, actually. And so we can deliver an 18, 20-pound box of non-perishable food to someone's doorstep for free.
Wow. And that's relatively new.
It's relatively new, yeah. But right now, it's just in the county we live in. We're here in Williamson County, so but we're looking to start replicating that around as well. It's cool. You know, we found out that there was a survey done. It's about 30% of food insecure families are transportation insecure. So you think
they
about
have car trouble. They don't have a car, or they
can't get to it. So we do a mobile food pantry on a Saturday morning, but if they can't get there, it doesn't do them any good.
Yeah,
and we do hear that a lot on a Saturday morning. You'll hear people say, "Hey, man, do you mind if I take some of this to my neighbor?" Or, you know, and I think sometimes we have this stigma about people that are suffering in any form of need or always trying to take advantage of something. It's amazing how many of them, they're like asking us permission. Can I share this?
Yeah, I agree. That stigma is totally there.
Yeah, and I'm like, and you're already in need, and you're asking me permission to go share it with someone. I'm like, dude, that's cool.
Do you always say yes to that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, heck yes.
So take me back a little bit. You guys have been in Franklin for 20 years?
Almost 19 and a half, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
OneGen's been around for 10 of those?
Yeah, coming on 11. Yeah, almost 11 years, yeah.
So take me back to like, where did the idea for the organization even begin?
Praying one day. We moved here to start a church. which we did. We didn't know a soul, had no financial support, planted a church with a seed. So if you talk about entrepreneurship, man, we started with there was no VC fund. There was no church fund. There was no, hey, we're going to send you out with a couple $100,000. And
you had no support at all?
None, zero. We didn't know anybody, literally didn't know a soul. And,
why Franklin?
I don't know. It's a great question. We literally, funny story, we in St. Louis, Missouri, where Elaine's from Greenville, Mississippi, and I'm from St. Louis. We were living in St. Louis. We went to Borders. And we first of all, we just felt like we wanted to be a 5-hour radius of St. Louis. I love sports, so.
You a Cardinals guy?
Yeah, Cardinals guy. I grew up with the baseball Cardinals. I mean, been to the World Series, the St. Louis Blues hockey. There was a football Cardinals. Now it's the LA Rams. Yeah, Arizona Cardinals. But anyway, they came back and then
they've been all around, man.
Yeah, came back and somebody else came and then they went back. So I just wanted some professional sports. So in a 5-hour radius of St. Louis, I have no idea why, but there's a lot. Chicago, Tulsa, you're talking Little Rock and Nashville happened to be one of them. So we just went on with life, praying, came back together. And Elaine said, I think we're supposed to go to Nashville. I go, me too. Neither one of us ever been to Nashville. Go to a Borders bookstore that tells you how long ago that was. I don't think they even exist anymore. And bought a laminated map of Nashville. And just started looking at it. And we're like, well, there's Antioch. That's a biblical name. That's literally all we knew. And if people are from here, you will laugh. But if you're not from here, you won't get it. But anyway, and we felt like we were supposed to go to Franklin. And I didn't know anything about church planning, man. I was just like an unpaid youth pastor at a mega church and didn't know that, you should do demographic searches and shoot, I didn't know nothing, man.
Planning a church is a full-fledged business these days.
Oh man. Yeah. So we just got in a car with another couple and drove down here and drove around for a day and a half praying. And we stood at a Walgreens parking lot up in Brentwood. And I looked at Elaine, I said, we're going to move here. And that's how it all started. So we just got here and then we finally moved here. It took years. Our middle daughter was born with spina bifida, a whole nother story, and she had to have some other surgeries. And so from the time we said we were going to move here until we moved here was almost 7 years. We moved here. Our oldest daughter was going into 10th grade, middle daughter 8th, and our youngest daughter 6th. So we destroyed their lives, took them out of everything they knew and came here and was praying one day, and God dropped this phrase in my heart, one generation away. And I reserved a domain name and started praying. And Elaine went to work outside the home for the first time in 17 years, something like that. And she worked at Mid-Cumberland Community Action Agency, which here in Tennessee, that's every county that surrounds Davidson, which is where Nashville is, has a Mid-Cumberland. So they do like home heating and, in the winter, winterizing homes for elderly. They do commodities 4 times, help with rent assistance. And so they do these commodities, and we volunteered to do that as a church. And we would bag groceries and walk people out to the car with them. And I thought, public parking lot. I'm like, hey, is there anything I can pray with you about? Not even knowing I'm building a model for what.
Yeah.
So a guy would deliver bread from Second Harvest Food Bank, a Feeding America food bank here in town, and said, hey, we could bring this 18-wheeler to a parking lot full of food. And we used to have a Cinco de Mayo festival here. If you remember, I don't know, La Casa de Mi Padre used to do it.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. And it would be for low-income families. They'd give away clothing and have blow-up rides for the kids. And so we did food one year. A year goes by, and and I have a St. Louis cell phone number because I had an insurance business in St. Louis at the time, and I was still commuting back and forth to help get the church started. And I told Elaine, I said, I need to call those Second Harvest people. And I no sooner I said that they called me with a free tractor trailer load of food. And I said, that's how it all started. And
so when you feel like the Lord gave you that name and you reserved that domain, you had no idea what it would end up becoming.
Had no idea at the time.
You just thought, okay, I'm gonna claim that name.
I might just claim the name and claimed it any way I possibly could. The number one, I mean, I did all these. I've got all these different domains. And actually, somebody tried to buy it from me too, which is another funny story. But a guy here who's my daughter actually runs his company now. It's a funny story, but anyway. But so it was just an idea and a dream, and I just knew that I knew that it was God. I just didn't know exactly what it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think for an entrepreneur, when you have an idea, there's no guarantee it's going to work. I mean, I just thought, yeah, it's going to work. Just
well, why would you do it if you didn't?
Yeah, I mean, so you got to believe that there's something in there for you to do. But I also believe that it may not look, even when I knew what I thought we were gonna do, it's still. I mean, think about it, we moved here to plant a church, which we did, but we ended up doing something. We walked away from the church about 3 or 4 years ago to run OneGen full time. And I tell people, I said, I think at times God will let you believe what you want to believe to get you where He wants to get you, to do with you what He wants to do with you. Mm. So He knew we wanted to plant a church. He's like, okay, I'll get you to Franklin so you can start a church. But really what I want you to do is start a food ministry that's going to be like nothing else that goes around that's in the country. And I had no idea, but He did.
When you were thinking about this, did you consider you talked about being in insurance. Mm-hmm. You'd planted a church. Did you think of yourself as an entrepreneur at the time?
No, not that. I mean, I ran, I had my own insurance practice. I just said I'm an insurance agent. Yeah. I mean, I had a secretary and a lady that worked for me that helped with claims and stuff like that. But I never really thought of myself. I mean, I was raised in a blue collar family, man, electricians, and I did drywall, and I sold some women's shoes for a while or something.
I did too. I sold women's shoes for a while.
And that's when I learned how to sell. And then I got into, when I started selling, I'd really loved the commission only thing. So that was prepping me to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Commission only. I loved it. It was like
you control your own destiny in some ways. Yeah.
You do. And so it's like, that's the thing for me. It's like, I just, nobody was limiting me. It was all about what could I do and what could I produce. And so that's probably the first taste of being an entrepreneur. And then I started, I should say before that, I did start my own construction company. So I guess I was an entrepreneur back then, but I failed miserably at it. I didn't understand how to run a business.
I feel like we all fail miserably at some point,
Well, you're not trying hard enough if you're not failing.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you gotta, I don't know. You just got to set the bar high, Do
you feel like people are, are we afraid of failure?
Oh, God, yes.
Why is that, though, you think?
Stigma, man. I mean, it's a stigma. Well, I'm a failure. No, you're not a failure. That just failed. That thing failed, but you're not a failure. If you don't learn anything, then you're a failure.
Yeah.
And I always say this, too, that the desire to quit doesn't make you a quitter. It just makes you human. Quitting makes you a quitter. Mm. There's a big difference. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many times I wanted to quit. Sheesh.
Every other day, I feel like it.
Yeah.
Every other day.
And, I lost sense of the vision at times, because when I dreamed this, it was like feed 1 million people on a Saturday morning and 1 million people being prayed with face to face by the local church. And that's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a big dream. When you have nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there were times, man, dude, in the middle of all this where I was like, I didn't articulate. And I even had people saying to me, well, man, you're not even feeding Tennessee yet. What do you think you're doing? And I'm like, yeah, but, you got to have vision, man. If you're not striving for something, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So,
so those early years, when you started, how did the early years go? Were they hard?
Good thing I don't cuss a lot because I could probably throw in a few adjectives in that would be helpful. Hard is an understatement. Tremendously difficult. Man, we didn't get paid. Nobody got paid for 5 years.
5 years. The first 5 years of the organization.
Nobody got paid. Yeah.
How are you living at that time?
By the grace of God, man. Seriously. It was interesting. I was thinking about this today, and I wrote this down this morning, actually, because I was thinking about it. And, there was no VC for a nonprofit. And VC back 20 years ago wasn't even, 18 years ago, it wasn't what it is today. It was there, but it's not, what it is today. But, when you start something, I think most people think about profitability as a focus. When you're an entrepreneur, you shouldn't focus on profitability. You ought to focus on sustainability. Because until you can sustain, there is no such thing truly as profit.
Yeah.
So I would say,
how do you define sustainability? Just being able to operate without
just being able to operate, without the fear that I'm not going to make it tomorrow, right? Now you could say, "Well, I am profitable." Well, no, you're not profitable yet. You're just sustaining. You're surviving, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I mean, not
sure.
Because the other thing I said is because sustainability is the launching pad for profitability. And you can only launch something as big as your foundation can hold. So if you're barely sustainable, you need to work on your foundation some more until you get it to a place where now you can really launch and become profitable.
Yeah.
And so I learned a couple things early on. So those 5 years were tough, really, really, really hard. We worked hard. It was just Elaine and I for a while. Then we got 2 guys that volunteered for us that were on disability, but I mean, they were functioning, but they, so they were driving the truck for us and rescuing food. And then our mobile pantries were volunteer driven anyway. I mean, it's volunteer all the way. So once we got that following and once we had that, then I was like, oh man, this thing could become sustainable. And I remember our first legit board in the first couple months, they wrote checks twice to keep us alive. They believed in us enough to do that. And they weren't like huge amounts and relatively today, especially, but to grow from 2014, we were about $1,025,000 nonprofit, and we closed 13 at $27 million.
Wow.
In 3 states. That's quite a 10-year growth pattern.
2023. You said 20. I was going, whoa, wait.
Yeah, 2023. So from 2014, end of 2014 to the end of 2023, we went from $1,025,000 to $27 million. A lot of that's in-kind food, but I mean, it's still cash budget's $2.5 million this year. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a legit 14 employees, legit company. So I think that early going though, man, when you're an entrepreneur, it's like, the vision sustains you. But I think going in, you need to understand it's probably going to be hard, and that's okay. If it was easy, everybody'd do it.
Do you feel like running a nonprofit is it different than for-profit businesses in any way?
No. I mean, I hate the word nonprofit because if you don't have profit, you don't function. It's an oxymoron. I run a tax-favored business. And one of the fortunate things by being in the for-profit world in construction and in the insurance businesses is I was around a lot of business owners. So I started to learn about P&L and balance sheet and all these things. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, man, learn what a P&L is, learn what a balance sheet is. They're both different. And balance sheet's the most important thing you've got. Because the P&L will lie to you.
Dude, I still don't fully understand a balance sheet.
But
I need to get better at that.
Yeah, it's the nitty gritty though. I mean, it's the nuts and bolts of who you are. The P&L can lie. You can look like, oh, we're making all this money where you're bleeding to death on your balance sheet. You just ain't seen it yet. You know what I mean? And it's a silent death we talk about. And if you don't know anything about, find some people that you can talk to, man. Just find some business owners that are successful and say, hey, can you help me figure out, here's what I'm looking at, And if you don't know, I think that's the other thing. If you're an entrepreneur, don't be afraid to ever ask anybody questions.
Yeah.
Ever.
What do you feel like some of those challenges were in those early years that you had to overcome and figure out and solve?
Awareness.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, we started
just getting the word out there.
Just getting the word out. I mean, a brand, a logo, I mean, a name, a logo, a brand. Now, how do we get the brand out there? How do we become relevant? How do we become known? Which is kind of the antithesis of my personality in a weird way. You know what I mean? So it's just so weird. But it is vital. And then, so when I say that, having the passion to be able to articulate your dream to another person, so that they can make a decision whether they want to join or not. And if you do that poorly, you've made the decision for them. But if you do it well, then they're going to have to make the decision.
But now you have these people who are involved. It's not just you and Elaine at this point. Are they also casting vision as they're working? I mean, they're representatives of the brand.
Oh yeah, they're always casting the vision. They know the story. They can tell the story. They know the story. They talk about how it makes them feel, and the impact and what they've seen. And that's when, that involves a different set of skills and a different set of everything, going from, when do you make that transition from entrepreneur to business owner? You know what I mean? I think isn't that the nitty gritty of it?
Yep. I'm working on it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm still trying.
I'm still learning, man. And I mean, even as, we've had 2 growth spurts, and that's what I was going to say in the early going. So we were in our second year. We just had a really good year. We're in our second year. And a guy here in town, I was meeting with him, and he says, I'm going to give you some advice right now. He said, we kind of blew up. We kind of became known, right? All of a sudden, people are starting to know about us. He said, I'm going to give you some advice. He goes, year 2, he says, you're in year 2 now. He said, you're the darling of the community. And he said, but you need to throttle your growth or you'll implode.
So
that was a good word.
Scale it down?
Or just left it flat.
Yeah.
Held it flat. Up 10, down 10, somewhere in there. I'm not looking for 100% growth. We kind of grew 100%, you know what I mean? And it's like, I think that's the other thing you got to think about when you go to scale is be careful of, in the early going, if you don't have the infrastructure yet, that you think you need, to scale to a place where you can't sustain it. Because you can grow too fast to where you implode yourself, or you can go too slow, right? I mean, there's this, or you can start receding early on too, where you want to quit. And there's finding that balance, but I'm glad I did that, because we had 100% growth in COVID, and you and I have had this conversation before, but we had 100% growth in COVID, and I lost 40% of my leadership team after that, because we grew to a size that their position on the bus wasn't right anymore, and they didn't want to change seats, and if they just kind of, it was just overwhelming for where we were. Now, last year we grew, in 2023, we grew 110% or more, and barely a leak.
When you have to have conversations like that, is it difficult?
It was.
Or are they do some of them come to you like, hey, this doesn't feel like me anymore?
That didn't happen.
Yeah.
I wish. No, they were really difficult. I would be better at it now than I was then. And it hadn't been that long ago, 4 years ago, but I learned a lot in 4 years. I'm learning a lot about me, and I'm learning a lot about, being an entrepreneur is a blast, man. It's like being on a rocket ship. It's like cool. It's crazy. You know what I mean? And I mean, good or bad, right?
I like to say it feels like the best ride at Dollywood.
Yeah.
Almost every day. And there are those moments where we're at the top of that ride.
Yep.
And the view is amazing. You're looking around, everybody's smiling, we all got our hands up. And then, but pretty quickly, you can be plummeting.
Yes.
100 miles an hour to the bottom.
Yeah.
And you're just white knuckling that thing. And your only goal is like, just don't die today. Just hold on.
Yeah.
Make it to tomorrow. It's going to swing up at some point. But golly, it's just so difficult sometimes to hold on.
It really is. And I think that it's really hard not to have your identity wrapped up in the thing, in the thing you're starting, right? Oh. And man, because it is, boy, if that's your identity, dude, you're going to be a hot mess to live with.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to separate that out. This is what I do. It's not who I am. And so if it doesn't make it, you're going to be all right. And if it does make it, you're not going to be a butthead.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I was going to say something else.
Yeah. You totally PG. Could. That's fine. That's fine. We can bleep it out.
Yeah.
Have you struggled with that? I mean, I know I have absolutely struggled with
Dude,
that.
I struggle with imposter syndrome. Like,
it's a weird balance because I do as well. Mm-hmm. I always feel like the dumbest guy in the room. I always feel like, golly, if they only knew.
Yep.
If they only knew how dumb I feel doing this every day.
Yeah. But
then on the other hand, I do latch on to these things as like my identity. And there's a pride there behind them. Not a good thing. Mm-hmm. And that's such a weird thing to feel at the same time. Like, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm winging it every day. And also, man, I got some pride in these things. Like, I don't know how those two things exist at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I look at it as, we're both believers. So, I mean, we base a lot of who we are on the Bible and what we believe. And Paul talked about, the Apostle Paul in the New Testament, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament, talked about this thing. He said, I have this thorn in the flesh.
Yeah.
Right. And God, he prayed that God would take it from him. And God basically said, my grace is sufficient, which is the answer we're not looking for, which is, I feel that every day. I feel like I have this thorn in the flesh. And to me, this is that yin and yang to me. Like, you're probably not old enough. I'm pretty old, but they used to have that cartoon. They had that show cartoon where like there's a devil on one shoulder. And
I remember. Yeah, for sure.
And they're both, and that's
Bugs
what it
Bunny
feels like.
would have it.
Yeah, it's what it feels like, right? You got one in one ear and one in the other ear, and it's like you've got to. You once again, that's where you don't want your identity to be in that. But I was telling somebody yesterday, I feel like that a lot. I'm not this. I'm like, what am I doing in this room? And I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut because a fool's considered wise even when he keeps his mouth shut. So I try not to say a lot because they'd be like,
don't give them any ammunition.
Yeah, don't give them any confirmation of what they might already believe. But so it's like I realize now I really have learned a lot, but I really don't know that much. Now, when I was 40, I thought I knew everything and I thought I was brilliant, and now I'm like, I don't think I'm that smart, but actually I've learned a lot, somewhat too. Most of my life, the funny thing about being an entrepreneur, maybe what helped me be an entrepreneur is most of how I've learned how to function in life is by what not to do, not watching what I should. It was like, what was the example that was set for me normally was what you don't want to do. I didn't grow up in a family of, wow, entrepreneurs, or you know what I mean?
You didn't grow up seeing it be excellently executed
by not at all, And everybody in my family worked for somebody else, basically, and so I never saw that. So I've learned mostly the backwards way, which in some ways I'm okay with now because I think it's really been helpful for me in a weird way. And when we started the food ministry, the only thing I knew about food was I like to eat it. So I don't want anybody to think, well, you were I didn't know anything, man. I didn't know anything about logistics, trucks, any of those things, warehousing. Dude, never drove a forklift, never operated a pallet jack, never did any of that stuff, man. I don't know. And, but I knew how to be a human. And I know how to serve. It's a passion of my heart. And I know that I have this weird gene that you have, and I tell people I'm just too stupid to know when to quit.
Yeah.
And you almost have to have that.
Yeah, I keep telling people, the only way you ultimately fail is if you just stop doing it.
Yeah, if you quit, right?
You just can't quit. Mm-mm. You just gotta keep going. And you will have a lot of those, we'll call them failures. We'll learn lessons from those.
Yes.
How can we even be grateful for those failures, the things that we've learned inside that moment that we can apply and get better to the next day and the next day?
I'm in the middle of one right now.
Tell me, what is it?
So we replicated, we put a warehouse in North Alabama and a warehouse in North Florida and hired a consultant, right? trying to figure out how do we want this to look. Do we want a franchise, which I didn't because it's too much paperwork and logistics, but how do we kind of get to that?
Can you franchise in the nonprofit space?
I think we can. It's just, you really get the government involved a lot. So it's kind of like I wanted to get right up to the envelope, push the envelope to the farthest possible, which we all want to do, right? That's why we're entrepreneurs, man. We're always pushing for something just right below that. But I'm also, I realize I'm like, I don't know if this is the correct way to say it, but I'm like a tactile learner. I need to touch it, feel it, and kind of play with it a little bit. You know what I mean? I need to experience it before I can make a decision on how I want it to work. So I have the end goal in mind, but I don't know how to get there exactly. That hiring the consultant did help me a lot. It gave me fresh concept of what this thing's going to look like. I use the phrase a lot. A lot of what we do is etched in Jell-O. So it's going to jiggle and wiggle, you know what I mean? But we do have a form, And so the mistake I made there was I hired one person at each location. And this is where sometimes the imposter syndrome can really bite you, right? And when we're so worried about our pride and our ego that we can make, and that's what it did for me. I didn't realize that I had this gift to be an implementer and a fundraiser at the same time. I just thought everybody could do that. Like, it's easy. Just go raise money and plus go do logistics and rescue food. I'm just naive enough to think I'm not that smart. I'm not the smartest guy in the room kind of thing, right? But that bit me because I came to realize that's not a common characteristic. And I think entrepreneurs have that innate ability to do. Most everybody has the ability to do a couple things pretty well, but we can do two things probably almost pretty darn good. One just drains more out of us than the other.
Yeah.
Which the operation side drains me. The vision, all that stuff feeds me. So I made that mistake, and
like practically that's so hiring one person thinking they can do both of these things.
Go raise money and manage
and run the thing.
The thing. And so then I had to punt and go, dang, I need to redo that. And so then I brought in another person at each location to kind of balance that out. And so that was that was on me. But I'm learning right now. And I'd say now I'm learning it even today more so than ever before. It's like we talked about learning the phase from entrepreneur to business owner. It's like you never lose being an entrepreneur, right? I mean, it's just in you. So, but man, that business owner side's got to kick in, and you got to have the courage to go, that did not work, and I need to change it.
Yeah. When you talk about entrepreneur and business owner, have you read 10X is Easier Than 2X?
Yes.
Have we talked about this book?
Not yet, but I love it, man, dude. Get ready to do it again.
I'm blown away by that book.
I did the audio. So everybody listening, if you're going to do the audio, because it's got the dialogue.
I love it.
I'm telling you, the preface to me might be the best part of the book.
I'll have to go back and listen to it.
Michelangelo.
Oh yeah,
the story of Michelangelo. Yeah. That might have been better. I heard that and was in. I didn't even but the gap in the gain and
gap in the gain. Amazing.
That's a huge. Yeah. There's a book that's probably gonna be my next read.
Oh, you haven't read Gap in the Gain?
I haven't read Gap in the Gain.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's my next one, I think. So
yeah, that one is maybe even better, just because
as an entrepreneur, it's really good, isn't it?
Just your mindset, like, man, it has definitely reframed the way I look at things, trying to stay in the gain. And he even talks about, I can't remember if they talk about it in 10X, but the nightly ritual of sitting down and like documenting your 3 wins for the day. I can't remember if they talk about that in that book.
They do talk about it in that book, yeah.
But man, and I've been doing it. Like, I've been sitting down. I've got an alarm on my phone. I sit down every night at 8 o'clock, get out my journal, think about my day. What are 3 things I did today that I consider to be wins? Sometimes they're big. Most of the time they're small. Mm-hmm. They're like, okay, I practiced my keynote 3 times. Like, that's a win. I got better at something, even though however small it may be. And it just develops this practice of living in the gain viewing things as wins so that we can look back on the day and go, okay, we made some wins today,
Yeah. And I know the book is, I'm recommending it to everyone. Elaine's reading it now. My wife's reading it right now. She's doing it right now. It is one of the, man, I've read some good books and I'm like, but that one's, wow, it's in my top 10, top 5 probably right now.
What are some of those other top 5?
How to Develop the Leader Within You, John Maxwell. It's probably, that one was, man, fantastic. I just wrote off some books the other day for some people. I think from a Christian perspective, just a life perspective, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer.
One of my favorites. I looked over, I thought, maybe I've got it here. I know I've got it out there.
I just read the other one. I just finished his other one.
The new
Practicing the Way. Yeah.
I haven't
It's
read
really
that
good too. It's really, really good. But The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry is, for an entrepreneur, is like, I think, almost a must.
Yeah. But it feels, is antithetical a right word? It feels almost anti what we think of as an entrepreneur.
Oh, it totally is.
Like the busy, I gotta be going, I gotta have a packed schedule, I gotta be doing things.
But 10X is easier than 2X.
It's totally the opposite.
But it kind of reinforces that, right?
100%. Yeah.
It's get everything off your plate so you can relax and go chill and go like take 6 weeks off and you're like, what? But that's that control. I think the thing of an entrepreneur, you have this, first of all, we're entrepreneurs because we're control freaks and we just all ought to get that out there. Just don't act like you're not, because that's why we do it. I mean, we want to control everything, but you realize that I came to a realization that I was the lid. Yeah. I'm the one hindering the growth. It isn't that this thing's breathing. It's laboring in breath because it needs to grow.
Yeah.
And me trying to do everything,
you're the bottleneck.
I'm slowing it down. And man, I think every entrepreneur reaches that point where they have to look at it and go, man, I'm the problem.
Was that an intentional point of view that you came to at some point? Like, do you remember, was there a period of time where you're running OneGen and like you're trying to do everything? Yeah,
I mean, I was at I belong to a C12 table, which is they're around the globe now. And I remember being in a meeting, and a guy there was a COO of a large company, and he looked at me and he said, so he was a COO of a family-owned business, third generation, and he looked at that guy and he said, when he hired him, this guy's turned 17 companies around. He's a brilliant guy. And he said, so he told the CEO when he hired him, he says, I'm getting ready to put you out of a job, but he said, you're going to figure out how to be a CEO. And he said, you'll be busier than you've ever been in your life. And so he looked at me and said, you need to learn how to be a CEO. You need to learn how to delegate, empower your team to run this company. Yeah. And he said, you're going to freak out for 6 months. And he said, then you're going to sit in it and you're going to go, wow, I never did run my company. And he was right. Man. Now I run my company.
Yeah.
Before it was running me.
See, I still feel like I'm in the place. I'm in an in-between space.
You are, yeah.
Where I've always done the things. I've always been the operator. And on some of them I still am. We're looking for good people. But it's scary.
Yeah.
Like there are moments where I'm terrified of like, oh my goodness, what have we done?
Yeah, I mean,
we're relinquishing control to someone else and they get to go do this and make decisions, and you want to empower them. Yeah. Like you want them to be confident in their abilities and their decision making, but man, there are moments where I'm terrified. Like, where's all this headed?
Yeah, me too. Well, before we talked about be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. And if you're dreaming really big, and I believe, for me, I tell people once again, a lot of my worldview is from being a follower of Jesus, is if what you're dreaming you can do in your own strength, it's not big enough.
It's not big enough. Yeah.
It's got to be beyond you, man, because it forces, first of all, it kind of forces your humility. You realize I'm not all that in a bag of chips. And then it also mandates that you empower other people to flourish in their gift, which is the greatest gift we can give to another human being, is to allow them to flourish in their gift. And I think that's where, as entrepreneurs, we have to have the mindset of not that we're the bottleneck and not that we're the lid, which that is the truth, but that we are hindering people from fulfilling what they've been gifted to do. And it's the very thing we all cursed when we worked for somebody else, that they didn't see the gift in me and they wouldn't empower me. And now we're doing it to someone else, which is, if we think like that, we'll be better at letting go and understanding that there's another life out there. Elaine was a stay-at-home mom when I was in the insurance business in St. Louis. So I worked before, when I was a drywall finisher, I worked day and night. I worked 12 hours a day. So I didn't put my kids to bed. I was gone before they get up. They don't remember any of that. I do. And so I've got, 6 grandkids now. So I don't want to miss that. So I can choose to work a bunch and limit OneGen's growth, or I can choose to empower people, and I'll be at the soccer game and OneGen will flourish.
Yeah.
And I'll be a better leader.
There's got to be a biblical principle in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think
it seems so contrary to, and 10X talks about it. Like, you would think, we got to do more. We got to work more. We got to work harder. But the opposite is true. If we want that genuine growth, we can't do that.
Yeah, you can't give what you don't have. And we gave. I mean, you and I have known each other for quite a few years now, man. And the beauty of what we both do is we've given our lives to what we do, man. We have literally, we've put it all of our chips are on the table, man. We're all in. We're all those things. We've brought our families along with us. It wasn't a democracy. It was,
Yeah.
It's us and our wife, and our kids just came along for the ride, whatever, But there just comes a bandwidth point, man. And I'm learning more and more now that the more time I spend on making me better, learning more, you're constantly a student. I think you should be in life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, so what I do now is so contrary than anything I've ever done. Is I normally spend a lot of my early part of my day for me. I read, I'll do some emails, I'll read. I've delegated some of my emails to my assistant. She kind of helps. She runs a lot of that for me now.
Shout out to Annette.
Yep. And Annette, yeah, definitely. She saved my life.
She's great.
So I've delegated that out, which that was like the hardest thing in the world for me to do.
Yeah.
I felt like, so that's when I felt like, now you're a pompous ass. So
I just hired my first assistant.
So you
3 months ago.
You and I are so much, just so we're not named both Chris, but we do.
I always thought assistants are just status symbols for people who think they're more important than they really are.
Man, that's a great way to put it.
Dude,
yeah.
I don't remember what it was. I don't know how I functioned.
We did
before.
That was the thing.
I know.
See, that's the thing. We didn't function efficiently or effectively. And there's nobody, it's like there's nobody watching the hen house. We were like a train wreck, man. Because we didn't have boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the beauty of and yours, and I have Elaine too, and we both have amazing wives that are, but they don't, there's something about an outside voice besides your wife being the boundary.
I totally agree.
And then it becomes 2-on-1, which really is like 4-on-1. You know what I mean? So it's Elaine and Annette, and it's like, hey, no, you've got this and this, you're not doing that. And I'm like, I don't have a voice anymore. Which, I mean, I do, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, I can trump anything, but I don't pull that card very often because I have blinders on, man. I think I can run through that wall and, you know what I mean? And, but after you run through about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 walls, the walls start getting thicker. You know what I mean? And they're harder to run through. When
you say you feel like you can do anything, do you have new ideas for OneGen? And when they come up, like, how do you process those?
I do constantly probably have new ideas for OneGen. I think the biggest problem I had as an entrepreneur is I have to turn off trying to fix everything for everybody. That's really my problem. It's like, if I'm talking to you about, and you're telling me about your business, I'm thinking, well, what about this? What about, and when I'm telling you about OneGen, you're probably thinking, well, what about this? What about this?
I'm trying not to think about it.
But that's what I do all the time. And so I have to turn it off. So if one thing my board has helped me with and my wife has helped me with, Elaine's just, wow, unbelievable. Anyway.
She's way better looking than you are too.
Oh, amen. God, I married up, man. We both outkicked our coverage. We know that. But nothing that isn't in that area of food, we don't do. But we do collaborate with people. Like we'll take things in that are furniture, but we know who to give it to already.
Yeah.
So I believe whom much is given, much is required. So I think there are some things you can do to break outside. And I think vision also, for me, vision is about honing that vision to make it sharp as it possibly needs to be. Like Doorstep Pantry was one that was a new thing. And got an email from DoorDash and 2 people on our team. One of them's not with us anymore, but Scott and Tori took it and ran with it. Created logo, everything, came and just presented it to me. And I went, wow, people really do that. But before I would have tried to do all that.
Yeah.
And the only thing I did, could we put just OneGenAway on there somewhere? So I put powered by OneGenAway. So if anybody ever sees the bag or the box, that's the only contribution I had to the whole thing. And that was one of the most freeing moments of my life. I went, oh, that's what this looks like. And so, I mean, that to me is, so if I have vision now, I think it's really more about how to hone the vision and how I see it. So it's like with the 2 warehouses we did, because of, the inflation and things that are going on, I went back to my team. I said, look, we're going to go back to how this thing started again. We're going to focus on doing mobile pantries in other cities and other places. And if it really gets traction, we'll talk about a warehouse. But we're not going to go intentionally plant warehouses right now. Yeah. Does that make sense? So it's
absolutely.
It's like...
Do you regret jumping in with the warehouses?
No, I don't necessarily. I mean, I had to learn it sooner or later, and I wouldn't have learned it if I didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So I think regret's too hard of a word.
But you learned something.
I learned a lot. Yeah. So I'm even thinking, I don't think there's no regret at all, really, because it's allowed us to serve. I think we're doing over almost 100 agencies in Alabama are on our list, and over 50 agencies in Florida now, and we're doing 100 plus. You know what I mean? So it's like there's people that didn't have food that were, agencies that were struggling to get food that we're able to get them food now. So I think I just. Once again, being a tactile learner like me, it's like I need to experience something. So it's going to be a little more bumpy road for me. And I'm more mad at myself that I didn't get it right the first time than I am probably anything else. If I'm being extremely honest, it's nobody else's fault but my own. And I think as an entrepreneur, you have to learn how to take ownership of decisions.
Amen.
There ain't nobody else to blame, man. Just go look in a mirror and go, the buck stops right here. But that was my employee. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Can you think of a time was there ever a moment where you took a big risk with OneGen? A moment where you were like, this is significant. If this doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, man. How many times? A warehouse in Alabama. I'll tell you the one that nobody thinks of is COVID. COVID happens February. Literally, I was in Ethiopia coming back. When I came back 3 days later, the world shuts down.
Yeah.
Williamson County Schools, we live in Williamson County in Tennessee, calls us, says, can we meet with you? We want you to help us feed our kids. School system. And we're talking 5 employees, 6 employees. They come meet with us, and so we would do like 40 emergency banana box full of food, like 40 of those a week, right?
Okay, so maybe to clarify a little bit, or not the whole student body, but obviously there are some kids who go to schools in Williamson County who are food insecure. Yeah. They don't have access. They're relying on that meal.
Yeah. So 40 boxes is what we were doing a week, right? So they come to us and they said, we want you to help us feed our kids. You've got trucks. We got trucks. Can we partner? We got distribution locations.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we went from 40 to 600 in 2 weeks.
Oh my
week.
goodness! Wow.
And did it for,
so they had come to you before COVID happened.
Yes, the social workers,
Yep.
people like that. Right?
Gotcha.
So they already knew.
And then almost overnight, it
And I made a
explodes.
decision to say yes. And it almost killed us.
Oh man.
And so it was almost one of the worst decisions I made. It ended up being a great decision.
Sure.
And so I think as an entrepreneur, so our world is extremely fluid. We have minutes, somebody will call, hey, we got 3 tractor trailer loads of lettuce. And we're not the only call they're making.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to think, all right, can we move this if we take it? So we start immediately getting on our Rolodex of relationships we built. Mm-hmm. Can you take? And then we can know if we can make a decision on it. So that's one of the biggest risk we've ever taken was that as far as food goes. The warehouses were a huge step for us, man. We've never had, and I failed miserably on managing people out of town. And understanding how detached they feel. And they'll be listening to this going, yeah, you're right. You were an idiot. But I mean, I'm learning as it goes.
Yeah.
And they've been extremely patient. They're great people that work with us and for us in other states. And once again, I read another book recently called Scaling Up. So it's kind of the Rockefeller system. It's like a POS system, but it talked about having people in different locations and how to create better experiences. So we immediately this year made some changes and when we're going to be together in each location. Everybody's going to go to their city, which a lot of you are going to go, well, duh, I would have done that. Well, you're not me. Sorry. I'm not as smart as you. So I didn't figure that out, but I am now. And so it causes you to be, as an entrepreneur, that balance of, do I say yes? And when I say no, and I'm trying to hone that in. It used to be I never say no, but that's not a good thing either.
Yeah, yeah.
And I try to teach my team, be careful to what you say no to, because that could be your big yes. Be careful what you say yes to, because that can eliminate what a bigger yes that's coming. So I was listening to a podcast. I don't remember who it was, but they said, if it's not a 9 or a 10, it's no.
Yeah.
And you got to get to that place. So I'm looking for 9s and 10s now before I say. There's a time when you start, you say yes to everything because
necessity.
Yeah. You're just, and so that to me is the first sign that you're coming out of entrepreneurship into business ownership when you can say no.
I'm working on that too.
Does it make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
When you have the,
I want to say yes to everything.
Yeah, but not all things are profitable.
No.
And that is another. Like we talked about executive assistant thing, like somebody, to me, that's the same feeling inside of you.
Well, it's that 80-20 that they talk about in the book. I feel like you've identified, and I'm working on it, what our 20% is.
Yeah.
What's the work that we're supposed to be doing? And I mean, you talked about the couple who are they on the board that handled the mobile pantry situation, the DoorDash relationship.
They were actually 2 employees.
Oh, 2. Okay.
2 employees.
But like in the past, I'd do everything. I would design things on my phone. I would write copy. I'd build out the website. I would do absolutely everything. And how on earth can something grow and become sustainable if I'm the only person doing all that? So I had to identify what my 20% is. It sounds like you're a whole lot better further down the road at that.
I'm getting there, man. I mean, but it's taken a long time for me to get there.
Yeah.
It really has.
And I know for me, like, dude, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I mean, I'm intentionally not doing the things I used to do and hiring people to do those things. Well, that's money out of my pocket that I'm paying these people. I'm paying myself less, but there's an intentionality, a plan behind it that it frees me up to write the keynote, to work on the book, to coach clients. It frees me up to do those things that I really feel called to do.
Yep.
But while you're writing a keynote, nobody's paying you to give it. While you're writing a book, nobody's Nobody's paying you.
Exactly.
So there's this bridge. Like, I see where we're going, but man, there are moments where it's like, what have we done? What have we done? I believe in it with all my heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there is this season of, well, you got to do a bunch of work that's not going to pay you for some time. It's a long game.
It is a long game, but that's sustainability.
I hope and pray it is.
Well, that's you're increasing your foundation.
Yeah.
So you can grow. And so nobody ever cares about a foundation. Nobody right now that's going to listen to this or ever is going to go, when I come over to your house, hey, come see my foundation.
Yeah, check out my foundation.
But without it, we wouldn't be looking at anything,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so it's like that out of sight, out of mind thing. And to me, as an entrepreneur and a business owner, you can never lose sight of your foundation, because you can only build what your foundation can support.
Yeah.
And if you're a 1-bedroom foundation and you're trying to build a 5-bedroom house, which means you're a solo entrepreneur, and I'm doing my website, I'm doing everything.
Yeah, that's good.
Your 5-bedroom house is getting ready to fall quickly. It's over. And so now you're like, yeah, but I got to go dig footings, and I got to, my God, I got to get an excavator, and oh my gosh. And
those things cost money.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and yeah, you're pouring money in and not, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day, a new board member, and just this unbelievable concept about why don't we make our budget where it's like there's no way we can attain it, and even if we miss budget, we still did more than we would have done if we were budgeting like we used to, kind of thing, right? And that's stirring back the entrepreneur up in us a little bit, right? To go, man, I'm shooting for that, and if I miss it, man, I still going to be farther than I would have been if I would have been doing these safe budgets that I knew I could achieve, that I feel like I'm pretty darn sure we're going to get. And because it kind of eliminates that adventure in you, that push. I think that for me, it's that little extra oomph of drive to go, I want to get to that next place. But I'm really finding with my team, what you're experiencing right now is that, man, the more I empower them, the more I'm fresh I dream again, man. I have vision again, like you are right now. But now I'm starting to see, and everything's just so clear. Like yesterday we had an opportunity yesterday, something that I was going to go do this, but 2 of the people on my team did it. Scott and Elaine did it. And they came, and then they're talking to me on the way back, and man, dude, I felt like I was just so clear-headed. I'm like, as they're talking, I'm going boom, boom, boom. They're like, wow. And I'm going, you just felt like I was in that zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it would have been the way it used to be,
where you're in the weeds every single day. Yeah, you're in the thick of it.
Man. It was so as they're processing to me, and as they're processing, I'm reprocessing back to them. And they're going, man, that's really good. I didn't think about that. And we started, man, we had, in that 15 minutes, we got what would have taken us a week to figure out.
Yeah.
In 15 minutes. And, and we're like, yep, that's exactly where we're going to go. Bam, we're done.
This might seem like a silly question because, you're serving people every single day. But do you feel like hospitality plays a huge role in what you guys do?
Huh.
Is that that's a dumb question?
It's everything.
Everything.
Well, you were old enough to know then too. I got quite a few years on you, but the buzzword 20 years ago was servant leadership.
Yeah.
There's no other form. That's no buzzword. That is it. If you want to lead, you're on the bottom serving up, and if you're not, you're anything on the top, somebody's trying to pull it down. Everybody wants to put you on the top so they can tear you down. And so I'd rather just stay on the bottom and lead from there, and I'll be okay.
Do you guys ever get hate mail? Do you get hate mail?
We get weird. We'll get stuff. People say, not hate mail, but just, why did you do this to me? And you gave me this and, whatever. You gave me out-of-date food and you're going to poison me. I've had, and I've delivered it to their door and they still email back. Like, I would give you food that's going to poison you. Really?
Yeah.
Come on. It's a sell by date. The food's not bad. It's just I mean, we're a gullible society overall sometimes, me included, Do a little research. You're good. I would never give you something that's going to hurt you.
We live in Franklin, Tennessee, Chris.
Yes,
I don't
we
know
do.
if you know that.
Yeah, we do.
I think it's the greatest small town in the country. I really believe that.
Love where I live. Yep. I agree.
When you and Elaine have people, I would imagine you have people come visit from time to time who've never been here, maybe. When that happens, where do you like to take them in Franklin?
Ooh, man. Factory, especially now.
Okay.
Super cool.
It's a hopping little place over there.
Downtown Franklin, obviously. Always come to downtown Franklin. Not even an option.
Yeah.
And the factory's becoming a really it place. I mean, before it wasn't like as much to do, but it's cool to see. Old factory, been around, cool story.
Yeah.
But downtown Franklin was always the first and foremost place we take them.
Where do you take them to eat?
Man, obviously, got to go to Andy's place, take them to Puckett's.
Mm-hmm.
And I love what's right below us, too, get some fish and chips, so you got to go. McCreary's, and then the movie theater back, we were here when it was the old movie theater.
Yeah.
With the bowling alley on one side and, kind of like theater on one side.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, there was a little narrow
bowling alley in there?
Well, no, it just looked like a bowling alley.
Oh, okay,
that
gotcha.
long, narrow theater.
Yeah, yeah.
You walked up the stairs to get, and anyway, but still take them to the new Franklin Theater, too. I want them to see it, and know about it. And go to Harlansdale. Love Harlansdale Park.
It's a beautiful place.
And then I always want to drive them down over on the other side, what I call horse country. Take them down along the river over there when the trees are bowed over. And,
oh
my God, it's like
yeah.
full sunshine. It's just complete shade, like you're driving in a tunnel with the river on one side and the pastures on the other. It's just some of the most beautiful driving over there. And so, yeah, those are the places I want to go. I take them.
Do you have family heirlooms that you plan on passing down to your kids and grandkids?
Yeah, we do have a couple things. It's so back in the day when I was preaching, I would handwrite all my sermons out. So we saved all those notebooks for the kids to have.
That's fun.
My handwriting and stuff like that. We have, and then we have some things from mission trips we've taken that we'll pass on. Stories, that we had from our past lives. We've got some, jewelry and stuff like that from family members that we'll pass on down to. Yeah, we will definitely do that. I have 3 daughters, man. Of course we are.
Yeah.
Except Elaine's not a hoarder, so that's awesome. Thank God.
Oh yeah, we've never been a hoarder, but we're going through a season of like purging things right now.
Yeah,
looking at things, going, why do we have this? We don't use it. What's it sitting here for? Let's let that thing go.
Yep.
Let somebody else enjoy that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It feels freeing to get
Yeah.
rid of things.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
If you had to take Elaine somewhere right now, you were going to spend a week somewhere. It had to be in the South. Where are you taking her?
Man, that's a great question. Someplace we could hide.
I thought you were going to say someplace we could get high.
No, someplace we could hide.
Someplace we could hide. That's a different
And so
thing.
it's hard to leave Williamson County, and people that live here will appreciate this. It's hard to leave Williamson County and go someplace where you don't know somebody in the South, right?
Yeah.
Because we all go to the same places, right? The Destin Beach area. So we'll normally avoid. We really like Pensacola.
I love Pensacola. I love it.
We love Fort Pickens. Nobody knows about it, man, dude. $25 for the week. You can go in there and just nobody's there. And just sit on the beach, and you could literally look and not see 10 people for a whole day.
Yeah.
It's like, so I think that's our hidden gem is Pensacola. I think it's the least place. Some great food. Got Grand Marlin. You got man, you got some good food. It's just it's just a cool vibe.
Been to the Grand Marlin several times. I love it.
Yeah, been the one in Panama City. We have a warehouse in Panama City, so yeah.
Have you been to Angelina's?
Haven't been to Angelina's yet.
When you go to Pensacola next,
Angelina's.
you got to go to Angelina's.
Right. We'll have to try that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I'm not as good on that as you are, man, because you're quite the... I just call you for references because you know we're everywhere to go.
You got to hit up Angelina's.
Angelina's, okay, I'll put that down. Yeah.
Are you thinking about legacy right now?
Man, good word. Yes. But maybe not as people may think of it. We're talking about building a nonprofit center here with no replication of service. It's kind of our legacy to our city. But past my grandkids, I may live long enough to see a great grandchild, but past my grandkids, somebody's going to remember who I am. I'm cool with that. It's not a big deal. But the legacy for the kingdom to me is a big deal. The legacy for being intentional. I say this, I just said it in a meeting right, a couple hours ago. Until we intentionally take care of the least of these, we'll never be an it city.
Yeah.
And that's anywhere in the country. I'm not picking on Franklin.
Yeah.
I think that's anywhere in the country. So that would be the legacy I'd like to leave, is for people to serve unconditionally, love those that are unlovable, which means nothing to do with economic class.
Yeah.
That's the legacy I want to leave. I think the coolest thing that happened was we were on a vacation in Mexico, and my oldest grandson, who'll be 13 soon, said to his mom, he said, I want you to tell Grandy that that one day I'm going to take over OneGen, but I'm going to take it international.
Oh, man.
So when your 12-year-old says that, you're like, I did something right.
Yeah.
I may not have done a lot of things right, but something passed to his mama that passed to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That'd be fun to see.
Wouldn't it be fun to see?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the legacy I want to leave. I want my grandkids to know that, hey, Grandy he loved people. He may not always been lovable, but he did his best to love people well. I think legacies handled the right way is a really good thing, and handled the wrong way is not so good.
Yeah, I agree.
Just like being an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
I'm
going to start calling you Grandy.
Yeah, that's cool. You can. That's cool.
How would you define Southern hospitality in a sentence?
Warm, open, friendly, kind, and sometimes too judgmental.
That's good. That's good. I like it.
That's the reality of it.
I totally get where you're coming from. Absolutely. What do you feel like the next chapter is for you?
Having intentional talks about transferring OneGen.
When you say transferring, what do you mean?
Stepping out of the day-to-day completely, let somebody else run, take a chairman type role, help with replication around the country, do some coaching and do some speaking.
Yeah, you'd be good at that.
And take some time to enjoy my wife. I've drug her through a lot.
She's a good woman.
Whew, man.
We got good women.
Man, we do. I've taken her through.
That's making you emotional.
It is.
It makes
man.
me emotional thinking about it.
Well, it is, man. I mean, she's given up a lot.
Yeah.
And never complained. Thank God we never wanted to quit on the same day. One time was close. I love telling the story. I asked her one day, I said, if you would have known then what you know now, and she looked right at me, she said, today's not a good day to ask that question.
Oh, man.
And I went, note taken. And I just changed the subject.
Yeah.
And that's probably the only day that we were even close, to probably.
Yeah.
And you guys had to experience that too, man. I think, I think, you just, there's something about it. You never have to seem to have a really bad day on the same day about what we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But without Elaine, I mean, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation.
Was that question about OneGen, or was that question about your marriage?
It was about OneGen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like more, I started a church, then started OneGen, and she's like, no more nonprofits. We're done.
Yeah.
And she was a commission-only wife, too, through insurance. So it's like I've drug her through, ups and downs and sideways. And we've had, our middle daughter was born with spina bifida, had 17 surgeries. We've been through a lot. Her mom died at 64 of pancreatic cancer. Within 3 months, she was dead. I mean, she's been through a lot, man.
Yeah.
But she's as kind and sweet and just, all those things. And yet tenacious, and she just, she's the full package, man. I'm blessed. I'm very fortunate.
She's my favorite Whitney.
Good call.
No, I love that. It's, we've had many days where, what are we doing? what on earth are we doing? At first, I thought you were talking about your marriage, and I can say we've never been there. We've never been in a moment where do we want out of this? And I'm so grateful for that.
Oh, our marriage is rocky.
Yeah.
Never been an issue. No, God, our marriage is fantastic.
But business-wise.
Yeah. And you know,
many times she's like, what on earth have you gotten us into?
Yeah. And I think the reason the four of us like being together, I mean, we love being with you guys because we relate to you, and I think you relate to us.
Yeah.
We're married. Sure. We're in business together, as you guys are, right? I mean, this wasn't like I'm doing my thing and I'm realizing more and more that's not the norm either. Yeah. I mean, that's a whole nother, to have a marriage and basically do business together.
Yeah.
Is
maybe an opportunity for you and Elaine to do something together, talking about that.
Yeah, we've had somebody mention that to us. So we've talked about that, you know, doing a mastermind class kind of thing on that, you know, just how to work together, how to separate business from pleasure and those types of things, and things we've learned over the last 35 years of working together, 37 years, I guess now, of working together in ministry of some sort or business.
I love it. If somebody wanted to, if they're listening to this and they want to learn more about you or about OneGen, what's the best way they can do that?
OneGenAway.com is our website. I would go there. I think it's one.gen.away on Instagram. I think it's at OneGenAway on Twitter, or not Twitter anymore. It's X. Sorry. Gosh, man. I'm so old.
I can't keep up, bro.
I'm so old school, man. I went Twitter. God, that was bad. Sorry, Elon. Did not mean to do that. X.
Shout out Elon Musk.
Yes, shout out Elon Musk. Sorry about that. Yeah, go there and you can reach me through those channels. I don't get on Facebook much, or I don't do a lot on social, but if you email me through, it'll get to me. Chris@OneGenAway.com. You can email me there and you're good.
I'm always intimidated when I'm in the room with you.
Oh my God. Why?
You do it well.
Thank you.
You really do.
And you do too.
I'm suspect at best.
Yeah, no. I think we're kind of in the same cloth in some ways. Well, you know, and you're a really, really, really great entrepreneur, I'd say, and you're the real deal. I think we like each other because we're both, what you see is what you get kind of thing, you know.
I hope so. Yeah. I try to be real with people. I try to be candid. You know,
you are. Yeah.
I always hate saying I try to be honest, because I try to be honest all the time. I want to be honest all the time.
Yeah.
But I look up to you.
Thank you. Well,
you are always, and I've told you this before, I don't feel like I ever spend time with you that I don't leave feeling better about myself, feeling encouraged.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise.
And that's valuable. That's really valuable. I think it's rare to have someone be that much of an encouragement to you. Yeah. And you do that for me.
I appreciate
whether
that.
You know it or not.
Yeah, I don't, but I appreciate that. I you know, anybody listening, please, if you just feel like, well, man, I don't know, don't reach out.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, time's a valuable commodity. I know that, but, man, we're here to help. I mean, I know that's why you're here. I want to help people, man. I want to help people be successful. And that's the legacy we get to leave, man. You don't ever have to apologize for saying, I tried to help somebody be better or leave them better than when I found them.
Yeah.
And those are the relationships in life you look for.
I appreciate your time, Chris.
Appreciate you having me, man. More than you know.
Love it. Listen, guys, I so appreciate Chris for coming on the podcast today. I love this guy to death. He and his wife, Elaine, we've just fallen in love with them and the work they do with OneGenAway. And I would tell you, if you're looking for an organization to support with your time or your money or other resources, please check them out, OneGenAway.com. All right, y'all, summer is coming up, and if you're looking for a fun getaway in Southeast Tennessee, check out our cottages. We have 2 tiny houses in the Monteagle, Sewanee area of Southeast Tennessee, madesouth.com/cottages. These things are awesome. They're tucked away in the woods. They're private. They're quiet. They're close to some fun restaurants and local shops. Man, we have tons of trails and waterfalls in that area. Just a really beautiful spot in Tennessee. Quiet place to get away, unplug, recharge. My wife and I, we've been going up there for like overnight dates, maybe once a month. We'll just get away from the kids and go up there and just be quiet, and it is fantastic. She's been up there a few times on some girls' trips. I've taken some buddies. We've gone on golf trips. If you're into golf, you got Sweetens Cove is close by, the Bear Trace at Tim's Ford. The course at Sewanee is another fantastic little track in that area. I mean, listen, these things are 90 minutes away from Nashville. Super easy to get to. They're affordable. If you're looking for that fun, quick, easy getaway, check out madesouth.com/cottages. All right, y'all. I'll see you next week. Bye.